I wanted to take a stab at this. Been talking a lot of philosophy. I guess we'll hit some economics. Got another super chat too. We'll get to that in a sec. But it says what. This is relevant now because we've got a lot of inflation going on, probably about to hit another crisis or going
Mhm.
through another crisis right now. But it says, would you be able to give the Marxist explanation for why economists are saying we need more unemployment to bring inflation down? I mean, this is the kind of stuff you'll learn in bourgeois economics if you study it in college. It's really what neoclassical economics is like price astrology. You're just looking at prices and then you're trying to manipulate prices in order to maximize profit. That's essentially what it is. So you have these contradictory concepts within bourgeois political economy, like we just need to increase unemployment to bring inflation down. It's like, well, we got to pick one or the other. So we either have to have people unemployed, unable to produce their means of subsistence, or the means of subsistence have to be priced through the roof. And you see these inherent contradictions in the capitalist mode of production show themselves in the abstract field of bourgeois economy. But essentially, there's an inverse relation in capitalism between inflation and employment and unemployment, because if you have less workers, they're going to have less reserve funds or less wages stored up. Trying to use more Marxist terms here rather than bourgeois political economy terms, but they overlap. So when you have high unemployment, workers don't have as much money to buy on goods, means of subsistence, so it drives the demand for those goods down, which then drives the price for those goods down, as capitalists are trying to get rid of the goods that they have so they can reproduce their capital. So ultimately, high unemployment means workers have less reserve funds to pay for goods. So demand goes down, and then the prices of goods come down. So inflation comes down, which is like, again, like the most capitalist solution you could come up with. Like, let's throw people into unemployment to get rid of inflation. Um, it's an inherent contradiction in capitalism, the fact that there's an inverse relationship between unemployment and inflation. But yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Carlos, to explain that.
No, you hit the nail on the head. And remember that when labor power is a commodity, that includes labor power as well. Um, the point that I wanted to make is it's a very contradictory and absurd system because it requires, as these statements that economists, bourgeois political economists are saying, it requires what Marx would call a relative surplus population. Um, and what essentially that means is this unique dialectics of superfluity where superfluous people are indispensable for the system. The system needs people that are essentially expendable. And that's what the unemployed as a segment of that relative surplus population, that's part of what it represents. It includes other sorts of social positions besides the unemployed, but it's one of the clearest cases where you could see how it is that the relations of production present the fetter for the development of the productive forces, right? In the U.S., we have an infrastructure that's rated a D, and or a D minus, I believe. And you know, at the time that we're in, you would think that you would try to give everyone a job in building up the American infrastructure so that it's we don't look like clowns when compared to China. Like, just look at China's trains. I mean, Jesus Christ, it's beautiful. It's so much more efficient, so much cheaper, so much so much more time efficient. Like, even when compared to flying in planes, you have to get to the airport like 3 hours before. It takes long as hell for the plane to even take off. All those time wasting activities that go into like a 3 hour flight, they're not included in China's, the bullet trains that go around the same speed, if not a little quicker than planes, and that you basically just show up and you're good to go. So, um, you know, we're at a time where when there could be so much more development of the forces of production, so much more social wealth can be created, and it's not. And not only is it not being created, people are thinking about creating conditions so that there's more poverty, so that there's more people in unemployment. And it's, you know, if that doesn't show the absurdity of the existing order that we're in, I don't know what does.
Absolutely. And you got me going down a rabbit hole in my own brain now, thinking about the labor market. Because if you look at the labor market for capitalists, when there's increased unemployment, the demand for workers is going to go up and the supply is going to go down, which is also going to increase prices, which is going to increase the amount of money that capitalists need to spend on their variable capital, which is going to then increase the prices of commodities. So, you know, even this capitalist solution, or this idea that there's an inverse relationship between inflation and unemployment, like, capitalism's so contradictory, and the interests of the working class and the capitalist class are completely inverted, diametrically opposed. So, you know, these capitalist solutions, or bourgeois political economy, this way of analyzing capitalism, doesn't even necessarily work. You know, you could have an action like increasing unemployment that decreases inflation in one way, but then on the other end, you know, it's going to increase prices, which may not happen until later on, you know, with the passage of time. So, yeah, bourgeois political economy is a pseudoscience, which is
Richard
part of why
Wolff,
it takes Mark so long to dissect it. But
yeah, and you know, Richard Wolff has I, you know, we have our critiques of him, but he's got a very good reply to this question, which is who raises the prices? Who controls where the prices are at? Why do they raise them? For profit, to maximize profit, to ensure profit. Profits don't go down, and
surplus value more specifically. But
that's it. Yeah, that's very easy to explain to people. You know, when they go to the grocery store, prices are not set by this, you know, godly force that, you know, says, you know, if everything goes this way, then these other things should go this way. It's capitalists making choices of where they have to put things in order to sustain their profit margins.
who's the grocery store? It's like Sam's Club or Costco. They've sold dollar hot dogs for like 40 years, and the CEO or whoever the owner has prevented them from changing that. And now it just recently got to the point where they're like losing money on it. Like, inflation has
Mm,
reached the point where they no longer have positive margins, but it's fine because, you know, people will go to Costco and buy a hot dog with other stuff, you know, so they make the money elsewhere. They make their surplus elsewhere. But it's like, so you're telling me that, you know, the cost of producing this good hasn't even gone up that much, you know? And if capitalists choose, you know, they could keep their price at a certain level. And yes, I mean, it's a choice, and it's also spurred on by competition, right?
right.
It's not necessarily spurred on by a need to increase the price of goods because producing them is becoming more expensive. Um, it's based on competition and controlling the largest share of the market possible and selling your goods for the maximum price you possibly can. That's going to bring in the most surplus value, you know? So, like, the public good or the use value of that commodity isn't brought into the equation at all. You know, it's all intended to maximize surplus value and win the market competition.
Right.
Um,
It's a dialectic of monopoly, of competition within the bounds of state monopoly capitalism. And
Absolutely.
it's extremely efficient at just doing whatever it wants in order to maximize profits. And I think
I have,
Arizona, is Arizona the other one?
sorry, what?
Arizona, that I think they've had the drinks for like 89 cents.
Yeah.
Since,
Yeah. They're the other ones. I was trying to think of them. Yeah.
yeah.
I want to get to this super chat, but I thought of something that's so well related. I was doing research today for class, for school, an assignment about nonprofit hospitals, and the vast majority of nonprofit, well, 7 of the 10 most profitable hospitals in America are nonprofit. The nonprofits are the most profitable. So that might not make sense, but the three of those nonprofits, three of the most profitable ones, are attached to HCA Healthcare, which is the largest, most profitable healthcare conglomerate or hospital system in the country, as far as conglomerates who own healthcare providers specifically. And the rest of them, the rest of the seven most profitable, are attached to other hospital systems. So you have these nonprofits that are tax exempt, but they're controlled by the same shareholders who own shares, who own stocks in these hospital systems. So essentially, what the nonprofits become are tools to, one, control prices, and two, control market share. Because these capitalists can make money from their pharmaceutical companies, their for-profit hospitals, their ambulance companies, whatever else is tied into this for-profit hospital system. And then they can invest surplus value from that in the nonprofit, which is going to be tax exempt. And in fact, they're going to get it's going to be tax deductible. They're going to save money. They're going to be like, oh, look at me doing all this charitable donations and philanthropy. And then they'll use the nonprofits as a tool, like I said, to control prices, control markets, and really move closer to having a full monopoly on the market. So they're masters at manipulating market forces. And as you said, there's 100% a dialectic between the competition of the market and the move towards more monopolization of the market, because the competition is what drives this. This drives this, this interest in setting prices and controlling as much of the market as possible. But as it continues, and as companies outcompete others and buy up others, you get concentration, consolidation, and monopoly. So the competition leads to its opposite.
Right.
I don't know if you have anything else to say about that, but then we should probably hit this super chat.
No, I think you hit all the points on the head.